Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you might see a link down below. You can join our Zoom conversation, be part of the conversation if you'd like. So check that out. If you are here for the first time and you're in the attendees and you're looking at all these panelists, you're probably wondering, how do I become a panelist? Or you're listening and you're like, these guys don't know what they're talking about. Well, then join us, become part of the conversation. So all you got to do is have good audio, good video, good internet, and some technical knowledge, at least an opinion, and some questions. And so we'd love to have you on the panel. Panel is open to anyone who shows up before 6:40. We open the doors at 6 o'clock in the morning. 6 o'clock, I can't promise anything from 6 to 6:30. It's what we tend to call the original hour, which is just how we started, which is just we all started showing up and talking to each other. So it's pretty casual between 6 and 6:30. 6:30 to 6:40 or so, we distribute the Discord link. The Discord link is Discord is the text chat that we use between all these sessions. There's over 700 of us because 3 hours a day isn't enough. And then from 6:40 to 6:45, we start doing mic checks. Mic checks are for us to check everybody's connection and make sure everybody's ready for the show. Once we start those mic checks, it's closed. You can't come in to the panel for today. So definitely take that into account. Be here by 6:40, and we would love to have you as a panelist. As we get to 7 o'clock, we start doing question and answer. And one of the great things, by the way, while we're doing those mic checks, you'll be sitting here watching, going, "Oh, these mic checks! I have to sit through the mic checks." It's a great time to think about questions, ask questions. You'll see if you're new to this, you'll see in the chat, those are linked to the other chat. We have an external chat tool that we use. And so you can go out to there, you can ask questions, you can vote questions up and down and be part of that conversation. And the 6:40 to 7 o'clock is a great time to do that. So then we have a whole bunch of queued questions, and we know how fast we have to go to get through those in the first hour. The first hour, 7 to 8, is all about general media production. So if you've got questions in those areas you'd like us to discuss, post them in there. The second hour is usually focused on something specific. So Monday's kind of a wild card. We can put whatever we want in there. Tuesday is audio. So today we're going to be talking about AudioHijack and Loopback. A lot of us use that. How many people are here in this panel use AudioHijack and Loopback? Yeah, so fair number of us. So we're going to talk about how we use it and how they fit together, because it's very complicated. Wednesday, we're going to talk about cameras. Every Wednesday, we talk about cameras and video. So we'll be talking about cameras tomorrow. Thursday, we have special guests. And Loria Petrucci is going to be here with us to talk about Livestream Pros, and her history and how she got here will be this Thursday. Friday and Saturday are both dedicated to education. So Friday, the second hour, and then 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours on Saturday is dedicated to educators that are trying to figure out how to do remote teaching, which we think might be useful this fall. So we thought we might dedicate some more time. We find that there's a lot of teachers that have a lot of questions, and so we're going to be there on Fridays and Saturdays to talk about those. And then Sunday is kind of an open, more casual 2 hours where we just kind of look at what's working and not working. So anyway, that's the that's the schedule. And let's go ahead and jump into the questions. Chris, you got some questions for us?
I have questions, but more importantly, other people have questions. So
well, do you have anything specific, Chris? Do you have a specific question that you're trying to solve?
There's not enough hours, even on a Saturday, Alex. Tony Adamopoulos says, in order to hardwire my connection for video streaming, I need a switch because my router ports are full. Any recommendations for a device, 5 to 8 ports, or a brand to explore options?
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Oh boy.
Paul, you have a very complicated system. Go ahead, Jason.
It's hard to go wrong with Ubiquiti. Keep in mind they're managed switches, so there's a bit of a learning curve. But at the end of the day, anything that's not green will work pretty well for production.
Yeah, no green. You got to turn all. There's a lot of eco settings where they basically turn off between when they're not being used. They're like, oh, I'm going to turn everything off, or I'm going to slow down things, or I'm going to drop things out. And eco settings on routers and switches is kind of a disaster. I'm sure it makes sense if you're in a large facility and you don't care about data. You don't care about your data getting from one place to the other, then I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it saves you 10 pennies.
I would recommend the Netgear ProSafe because it has a lifetime warranty for switch.
I have to admit that if I'm only trying to extend what I already have in my router, I'll tend to look for a pretty dumb switch, and we've used plenty of Linksys, route switches and, a variety of ones. I don't want it to do very much. So I just want it to extend the number of connections I have. So I tend to use a lot of dumb ones. I admit that I still use Cisco switches, but we have had a lot of Linksys in the back in the past. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, to add to that, if you have, it depends on how you have your cable runs and how you have to move your cable runs around, whether you would get a large switch that would go into a room or a bunch of small switches that would go into separate rooms. Then you just have to plan it out that way. That would be my recommendation, is to make small switches in each room and then go to the router, and maybe even get rid of the router altogether and go static IP, because that helps with any type of extra jitter issues.
Now you're just getting crazy. All right, next question.
Next question would be answered. Sorry,
you were behind there. I caught up for you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so whoever is touching the Q&A has got to stop touching that.
Well, you didn't hit answer, so then people were asking for where's the current question. That was the issue.
Yes, I'm learning. Whole new thing. Jules Elkin says Final Cut 10. Final Cut 10 can output interlaced H.264 with multi-channel audio as roles using the export master preset. It's pretty unique. How can one, I see stuff moving. How can one up the data rate as it is fixed at around 15 megabits per second or HD? Trying to create a preset in compressor to duplicate this, but failing seems impossible in Premiere, etc.
Go ahead, Bill.
I might be wrong about that, but I think that's a convention they built directly into 10 to be able to send out a reference video with multi-channel audio for a post-mixing situation. I'm not sure they ever intended that to be a delivery. I assume you could go into compressor, and compressor will let you touch and change almost anything, although sometimes with certain formats, and I would imagine H.264 might be one of these, it will constrain how much access you have to other parts of the signal because it's out of spec for whatever that is, H.264 in this case. That's my guess.
Go ahead, Chris.
There's a couple things. One, you don't have to export the H.264, and it's a little confusing about what you're asking for. You can output a ProRes file with multi-channel audio. And also the multi-channel audio, although there's many ways to use it, one very handy way to use it is to make yourself an archive of an edit once it's done. And so what it means is that you can have all your dialogue on a stereo mixed pair. You can have all your music on a stereo mixed pair, and that can all be embedded in that one ProRes file. So a year later, the client rebrands, they don't want to use this music, or even, and I don't do television stuff, but if you have to do, there's all words for that.
Foreign language stuff.
Yeah, foreign language things, you can strip out just the dialogue. So it's very handy. There are many ways you can use it. I don't use it very often.
We use it on some of the events that we have where we have multiple languages. We might have 8 or 10 languages. And what's great is you can build that all in Final Cut and then have those as roles and then export it out as multi-channel, as you said. It's just in case you can't get back to the Final Cut document, you've got something that carries with it all the captions and all the languages and all the things that you did. It's all in one file. You can open it up and continue to work on it. You're going to lose whatever else was there, but a lot of times just having it in one package is useful.
Another really important thing I want to mention is that although there's another function in compressor that's very important, and that is pass through. So you can take your video, your ProRes, and export it down to whatever, but you can pass through the audio without futzing with it at all. So that's a good thing to know. It might help you.
Next question.
Next question would be Attila. Any recommendations for a DAM, clean show, software to build a searchable catalog of photos for a company, preferably usable by normal people?
Go ahead. And this is digital asset management is DAM. Victor and then Jason.
If it's photographs, I would go with Photo Mechanic.
And Jason?
Photo Mechanic to me is more of a sorter than a cataloger. I guess maybe I'm just ruined on this, but I don't think Lightroom is terribly complicated, especially the more recent Lightroom Cloud one. As an alternative, I would say Google is impossible to get wrong.
Yeah, I think that the only thing is that you're trying to figure out something that is, how I'm reading this anyway, is that you want to build something that there's an admin on one side and then there's a user on the other. And the user on the, so it's not how do I manage it for myself, but how do I set up a bunch of photos that someone else
G Suite will do that. Yeah, like for a lookbook, if you wanted to curate specific logos or something, I think G Suite will do that. So the paid version of Google Photos, I think, will handle that administration stuff.
And real quick, we'll go to Chris, Stuart, Bill, Victor, but 15 seconds each.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Chris Stewart, not Chris, then Stewart. Hey, Jason, on the G Suite, can you right click edit and send it to Photoshop?
I would do that with AppleScript. You may be able to find a browser plugin. The other way to do it, of course, is with Drive, and Drive, of course, it very easily moves into Google Photos.
Go ahead, Stuart.
Jason just mentioned using Adobe products and doing things in the cloud. I noticed in the question it actually says catalog photos for a company. What if the company has security protocols where they don't want their product or their intellectual property in the cloud at all?
Right. Yeah.
Is
Bill?
there anything that'll do the job with that?
I think that we're looking for some kind of on-prem. I mean, what I'm trying to figure out is in that question is an on-prem system that lets people, or intranet system that lets people see the photos and easily grab them, not using an external service. Bill, and then Victor.
I think all the big photo companies are trying to incorporate digital asset management into their products. I'm not sure any of them have cracked it entirely yet. Capture One is leading. I've been switching everything to Luminar, and Luminar has a digital asset management system, but most of them aren't. You can't get the data out and back in very easily. So that, I think they still need develop.
Yeah, go ahead, Victor.
Yeah, I'm just going to go and push back a little bit as far as Photo Mechanic just being a sorter. It has some very powerful metadata features, and I would go and try it for free. You can download it and try it like for 90 days for free.
Again, and I don't think we're really solving the problem though. The question here, I think that what we're talking about is, I think Photo Mechanic is good. What I'm saying is, I don't think we're talking about single user. I think what we're talking about is, I'm on the back end putting photos in, or I have a crew of people putting photos in. Then there is a user interface on the other end that is not Google, not Adobe, not whatever. It is something, let's just say, that is clear listed, that people can just grab images and pull them down. I know that there's lots of video versions of this that you can grab. Some of them are really expensive, but I don't think what we're doing right now, the answer that so far, I don't think solve the question at the moment. Go ahead, Hosmuk, and then Jason.
I know, don't ask a question if you're not sure you're gonna like the answer. We just seem to have missed the first.
Nope, we lost you.
We just missed the first two questions.
I don't understand what you just. Okay, I don't understand what.
No,
anyway.
in Mukana we have two questions that are answered, but we didn't go through that.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll figure out what we're doing there. Anyway, I don't. Yeah, go ahead. Jason.
I understand what Hosmuk is saying, and
okay.
We will get to it.
All right, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I misunderstood the question. I didn't see any exclusion to cloud-based. I would say then, in this case, maybe a NAS with own cloud, or even Plex might do it.
Yeah, I think that we're still talking about consumer solutions and not professional solutions. I don't have the answer, but I know that there are companies that I've worked with that have this. And so I just don't know what the answer is, but I don't think it's the answers that we're giving. So anyway, yeah. Colin, go ahead.
I don't have a specific answer, but there are at least a dozen enterprise grade open source solutions that would be deployable on premises. Intermedia being one of them, and I've not tried any of these. Pimcore and I don't know any of these particular.
Anyway,
Like I'll
so
drop some links in,
I'm
but
gonna
the point is, if you take an on-premise NAS and pair it with an open source, locally deployable asset management interface, that's probably the way to go.
If you like open source.
Well,
if you just want it,
or not. But the point is,
if you just want it to work, then
the point is you want
turnkey.
something on premises. You don't want something cloud based, and this is how to do that.
Right.
I'll just note you could probably build one in FileMaker Pro without too much difficulty to multi-user.
That
but I think someone asking for this though. I think that what they're looking for is a turnkey solution that doesn't require a lot of work that you can just set up.
I didn't see that in the question.
I take that in the question. So anyway, so let's keep moving. I'm going to call this one up. We got stumped. We'll come back to it. All right, next question.
So the question, Hasmuk, we accidentally promoted a question that had not been answered. So the question is, we mentioned 18% gray to paint my wall as a background. Deluxe and Plascon are the big paint manufacturers. After several calls, no one in the tint department seemed to understand what I'm looking for. Any information on the mix that I can pass on to them? I know my Google is as good as yours.
Here's exactly how you do it. You buy an 18% card on Amazon. Just go up to Amazon. There's lots of them, and then you hand it to them and just say match this color. Like you can give them all these other things and everything else, but literally I'm about to get something. I realize I don't have an 18% card easily, oddly enough, and I'm I mean I couldn't. I'm spelunking in my garage. There's one there somewhere. I just don't know where it is. So I just ordered another one on Amazon. It's going to show up tomorrow. I'm going to hand it to my painter for my new office and just say, I just need you to paint. I just tell the painter, I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it up against the wall, and I just want to make sure that they match. That's all you got to do. And that's much easier for the folks that make your paint. They'll just knock that right out. Giving them numbers or anything else won't make any sense to them, but just giving them a card that says match this color is super easy for them. Go ahead, Hosmuk, and then Jason.
They did Google it, and it was on screen, and they were trying to match it with on screen. I felt very uncomfortable, and I just walked out.
Number one is it also, if they get close, it doesn't really matter. Like I say that because it's a known quantity. It doesn't have to be 18% gray. It's not going to help you at all one way or the other. But the easiest way to do it is, I mean, it's just like what I'm saying is if they get close, like it's close gray, it's going to be good enough. It's just like, it's like within a range of that color. But what I would say is that the easiest way to do it for any painter is or you walk into any hardware store and you just hand them a card that says this is the color I want. That's what they do all day, because someone brings them a paint sample and says I'm trying to match this, and they get it, they make it. So that's a pipeline that they understand. Go ahead, Jason.
So here you go, WHIBAL.com. I could give you the technical answer, which is black at 50% saturation, but that doesn't matter. Alex's solution is foolproof.
Next question.
Kyle Hammond says, did Mickey ever put together that video about how to get the WLM into your Zoom meeting? My main question is, do I need another Zoom account, or is there a way within Zoom to add the WLM as a second participant? Mickey, do you use 2 accounts to pull off this wizardry?
First of all, I haven't made a video, and I don't think I will be. I mean, I'd rather talk about it here. And
Mickey's throwing down the gauntlet. He's like, hey, I'm not doing if you guys want a video, someone else is going to have to step up and make the video.
I'll do it if you want me to, Mickey. Let's get together on that.
All right.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, shoot me a message on Discord. And regarding the accounts, I believe that only enterprise and education accounts can be on 2 meetings at the same time. So if you don't have one of those accounts, you will have to make a second account. I'm actually using my work account on this machine to do the WLM meters.
It should be pointed out here that the second account doesn't have to be a paid account. It could just be
yes.
You can just set up I've got lots of, like, the account that's pushing to the audio in Mukana is just some other account that I have that I jumped in on.
Yeah, just make a free Gmail account and a free Zoom account, and you're good.
Yep, Hosmuk?
Yeah, I still haven't released Mickey from doing that video, so I'm also happy to offer to make that video.
Very good. You and Jeffrey and Mickey have to get together and figure that out. Grant?
I was just going to suggest maybe, Mickey, you could do an audio description and just send it as an MP3,
Just
And
it's like a
and it's
VO.
not a
and
video.
then
Yeah.
you guys make the B-roll for it.
There you go. All right, next question.
Max says, can using ProLevel for macOS be as good as WLM for setting mic level for Zoom? ProLevel.
I don't know what it is.
I've never heard of it.
Jason.
I mean, anything can be good as long as you have the right numbers. So, I mean, sure. As long as you can set it correctly for LUFS at -20 for, yeah.
Next question.
Tom Rowe says, I recall Guy commenting on the Huddlecam HD 4K, that's contradiction, web camera some weeks ago. Does anyone have one of these? And what are your first impressions, opinions, and optimal use cases?
Go ahead, Guy, you have one, right?
I do have one. I should have brought it. In fact, I'll bring it tomorrow. It's on my general manager's desk. He's been loving it. I was hoping somebody here would just raise their hand because actually Paul has one, but Paul, your lighting's not like killer. So where this camera really shines is like a lot of the others is where you don't underlight things to where the noise creeps in. I mean, I'm even doing it on this camera where I'm kind of underlighting it and there's some noise creeping in for you pixel peepers out there. But I looked at the ADC cameras yesterday and they have one similar as well. So Lumens makes one and then there's the Brio. So there's like 4 that are in the same kind of category where it's a 4K sensor that they're sampling down to HD, and then you can zoom around via ePTZ. For $299 on the Huddlecam, though, I think it's the cheapest. I think the Lumens one's like $400, but I think it's a good camera for the money. But like I said before, when we had this question, I just wish that a manufacturer would make a larger sensor, like even a APS-C size or something like that. So I had an hour-long conversation with the ADC CEO yesterday, and letting our voices be heard that we want a larger sensor and a camera. But for now, we'll take the $75 one that seems to be getting some popularity among the crew here.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that for our medium systems that we want to use, I think that we're definitely thinking about the Brio or the Huddlecam as like what we put into all the, like if we're going to expect to get it back, we're going to send out those because of the ability to go over Zoom and reframe someone is pretty compelling.
Guy, which one is the $75 solution? Which one?
The ADC one, and then the yeah, that's probably the best of the bunch for under $100 right now.
All right, I'm on the Huddle.
Oh, you lost you, Paul.
The Huddlecam has a feature where it will mute your microphone. So.
All right, next question. We're going to move on. Go ahead, next question.
Next question would be Martin Reutman says, any way to fix ground noise on a Logitech headset? I already have the computer with the ground connected. Thanks.
Logitech headset. Why would you have? Oh, is it because it's analog in? Is it one of those like it's like a Logitech with the little analog I/O? Go ahead, Victor.
No promises, but I have used the Alki ground loop noise isolator, which is 3.5 millimeter. And I'll put a link to that. But with these things, nothing guaranteed. It's $10.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey. And then Greg.
The main question I have is, are you talking a laptop or a desktop? Because I noticed that some laptops actually do have some noise problems to them, especially older laptops. And so that would be the first question I would ask. And then just if you can, plug it into another device and see if it follows you.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, he's saying MacBook Pro. I don't know. That's strange. Yeah, I would try the isolating transformer.
Yep. Yeah, it's odd. All right, next question.
I like this one. Ken Jones says, beating the dead horse a little more, is the HDMI audio video sync difference an industry standard, or does it vary by brand or by model? Do you always get the same amount of delay with all HDMI devices?
No, it has less. It doesn't have to do with the. Well, we can talk about this. I don't think it has to do with the HDMI device as much as it has to do with the TV and how it manages it. I don't think it's the HDMI has got no sync issue. It's how the TV manages the audio and the video. Go ahead, Chuck, and then Jason. Jason, and then Chuck.
The industry standard is absolutely perfect, but and as usual, Alex's answer was too. It's your source that creates delay. Period.
Well, it's the source, or the TVs can be off. You know, so TVs can have their own.
Or I'm
their
sorry,
own
not
issue.
the source, the destination. That's what
The
I meant.
destination. Yeah. So
I don't think that's the question. I think the question is like, so for example, if your audio goes one path to your output, but your video goes through an ATEM Mini because it's HDMI out of a camera, will that amount of delay always be the same if it's 3 different cameras, or because it's sort of standard?
Yeah, that'll be a standard. But I think that if we're talking, yeah, it's hard to tell in that question. But one thing that I will say is that TVs are all over the place. You know, they can be 2 frames, 3 frames up, depending on how they process the video, and that has to do with upscaling and so on and so forth. Chuck, and then Courtney.
Well, yeah, I ran into this trying to get some HDMI mixed in with an SDI source with audio running through my X32, and for me, it was not the same. Sometimes when I ran one route, it was about 70 milliseconds, and then other times it ended up having to be cranked up to 120 or so.
Well, you'll definitely, your routes will make a difference, but the cameras won't.
Yeah, no, the cameras didn't. So I found some really cool YouTube videos that had sync patterns with audio clicks, and I use that to set the delay.
The real problem with playback systems, using playback systems as sync, is that you're adding another variable, which is the playout system itself, and whether that's going to be synced on the way out. So the best way to do it is to have something that is the best way to test that. The absolute best way is to have 2 channels, one that's the camera with one of its mics open, and the other one is your audio chain. And you have a stereo thing, and you clap something or you close something, and then you open it and look at it. You're going to very quickly know what the offset looks like very accurately. But we use playback a lot. BBC uses it, and so we stole their video and then used it and then built our own and everything else. But the real challenge that you have is that we thought that they were right. We learned that they were wrong when we got a validate. A validate is the way that, and now it's another. I don't know why I have so much trouble. It's Hitomi makes a Matchbox that generates a signal that if you use it correctly, it will absolutely tell you what your offset is in the hardware, audio and video. To us, it's the like, if you're going to test something, if you're going to do a video playback, you have to test it against that first. Then you would know that video is on or off. But we found that we were actually 30 milliseconds off on our playback video, and we started finding all kinds of things, like a Pix 240 will pass through without delay, but will actually be 30 milliseconds off when it plays out what it recorded. So those are the kind of things that you learn when you have an absolute accurate sync. But you need a sync box to do that. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, just one little tip, because it is a minefield out there as far as lip sync synchronization, and SMPTE's been trying to tackle that beast for many years. One tip is a lot of television sets, consumer television sets, especially the 70, 80 inchers, will have a mode on it called game mode. And what that does, it removes all the processing to remove the latency of any of the video processing. So if you're having a sync issue, you might try it in game mode, and that might help remove some of the offset.
And a lot of your TVs, and I think even Apple TV has a offset that can be applied to your audio. So there are, even in consumer tools, the ability to correct for that. Go ahead, Chris. Next question.
Victor says, if using OBS and an ATEM Mini Pro, can you, assuming you have to put your own computer as an input to the ATEM in order to record via USB-C, therefore in the new Mini Pro ISO, it would defeat the purpose of recording ISOs if you want to use OBS?
And I know that's confusing.
Thank you.
The scenario, I'm sorry, Chris, it's a hard question to ask. The scenario is this: Ecamm or OBS or whatever it is. Unfortunately, Blackmagic has made the Mini Pro and even the ISO somewhat crippled by only having one USB-C, because you either use it to connect to your computer, therefore you can use a virtual cam in OBS or in Ecamm, or you use it to record, which is what I would rather do. But I'm finding that unless I'm willing to do my entire production on the ATEM and everything that involves, I'm kind of maybe SOL.
Well, it's not so much you're kind of using it not the way it's designed. So I think that you're getting outside of its design, the way it's built to be used. I think that is the challenge there. So I think that it's designed to do the show. It's not designed to work in, with you're adding Ecamm or OBS on top of it, but it's really not designed for that. It's designed, I'm going to do a show and then I'm going to send it out to either record it. The use case for the ISO, which may not be for everybody, is that I'm going to do a class or I'm going to do a little show and I'm going to record all those ISOs with that and be able to recut it later. And so that it works perfectly for that. When you start trying to add all these little chains into it, you're going to definitely, you're just not, taking your Tesla S series, into the, out off-roading is not what it was designed to do. You need a
so
Jeep
Alex,
for that.
let me refine that just a little bit. Okay, so I grant that what you're saying is 100% right, but then it's like I have to buy another gadget from Blackmagic to play automated lower thirds. I have to do something else to play multiple, overlays. It just seems like maybe
I guess
they're just trying to get me to buy more.
Well, so the challenge is for a piece of hardware is that you're deciding what price it is, and you decide you can't put everything in for the same price. So when you compare, there are things that will do a lot of those things, and I speak as someone who spent $25,000 on a switcher from Panasonic that doesn't do nearly what the ATEM does. So I have a little different view of it. The ATEMs definitely have some limitations, but for the price, they're amazing, and so we have to look at, there's raw components. When you say, okay, I want to have a bunch of these things added on top of it, that costs money. There's memory chips and there's things and so instead of being $300 or $800, it'll be $1,500, or it'll be, and there's other ATEM switchers that have a lot more capability than what these little ones do, but they cost more money. And the one thing I'm pretty clear of, having used Blackmagic for the last 10 years, I complain about what features it may or may not have. I don't think they're marking it up very much. Like I don't think they're trying to get as much as they could out of it. They seem to be pretty competitive. So I think that when you see the limitations of an ATEM Mini, what I look at is, holy smokes, look at what it does. Now, do I expect it to do what a Constellation does? No. But and so the thing is I don't think they're trying to move you up. They're just trying to solve different problems for people within certain niches, and you're just trying to push it a lot further than what it's designed to do. That's all.
And I'll totally admit I'm a noob, but I'm probably more of your everyman that's out there than you who can afford a Constellation. I don't know.
No, but I'm saying that I will say that I will generally recommend people do what I call keeping your elbows in, which is that I don't try to have the hardware do things that it's not built to do very often. So I'll either buy up or keep my production where it lives inside of that set of limitations. And so, like for instance, I notice a lot in Ecamm when people use Ecamm. I notice a lot of frame rate drops. Not always. Yours looks good most of the time, but I definitely, when people say, "Oh, I'm using Ecamm," then I go, "Oh, that makes more sense," because their computers aren't able to manage that CPU load. And so there's a lot of like passing it through software unless your computer is ready to handle it is, so the ATEM takes all that pressure off your computer and lets you just have a show. You can do what you want to do. Yes, it's limited in some what it can do, but it also shows you every frame. I like every frame more than I like extra bells and whistles. Chuck, and then Bill, and then Jason, and then we'll move on because Colin, sorry, I'm just going to try to get through this. We're
in the
stacking
workflow,
up questions.
In the workflow, Victor, if you can do without the multi-view, you can take the HDMI out just into an HDMI capture and still do it that way.
Yep.
Or that's what they're making the bridge for, is now the bridge gives you another SDI or HDMI out over the Ethernet. So still both affordable options to do that. And that's what I'm getting mine for, to have the ISO recording, but still bring it in somewhere else.
Yep. Bill, and then Jason.
Not suggesting this is a solution, but sometimes when I just need one more device, a well-designed, well-powered port extender has been known to help me in the past. It may or may not solve this.
I don't think with the USB-C with that functionality, I think it has to be one or the other. I don't think it'll let you do both. Go ahead, Jason.
over the years, I must have done a dozen interviews with Blackmagic on camera. And what I saw at every trade show, the answer, and I've said this before, is anytime I ask, can this do this at the same time? Why did you make this decision as opposed to that? The answer is always Blackmagic is an a la carte company. That, you know, that's how it's designed.
Right. Is that you just buy what you need to make it work. Yep. Next question.
Stuart says, does Zoom alter the compression level according to the participant's upload bandwidth?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it'll absolutely, if you have slower bandwidth, it'll absolutely knock you down. It's just making all of them do that. They make a decision about what they can send based on what you're able to maintain. Go ahead, Stuart.
I've been swapping between which cameras I'm using and what connection I'm using from home to whether it's a 4G connection through the Netgear modem or through the Telstra onto Australia's NBN, which is supposed to be one of the fastest networks in the world, but trust me, when it's finished, it'll be the slowest broadband in the world.
Right.
Grant could probably weigh in on that, but hopefully the image quality tonight should actually show a little bit more fine detail, because when I've watched back our YouTube, what's left here looking well detailed has looked like 420 on
what
YouTube.
you see, yeah, what you see locally and what is sent out is two different things. So what happens is with all video chat, they take your window and they immediately show it back to you so that you have zero latency and it makes sense to you, and it's at a much higher quality than what it actually sends out to the world. And that's mostly so that it's not there for you to understand how your compression goes. It's there to make sure that you understand what you look like, and in real time and without any audio delay or very little. So that's the limitation. But yeah, you'll absolutely still be compressed on the way out. Yeah. Next question.
Jules.
Yeah. Good.
Jules says, anyone know of a simple LUFS conforming tool plugin to help when delivering broadcast files out of Final Cut 10? MXF, XD-Cam, HD, OP1. I need it to automatically look at all the files and split out a good one.
And one thing I have to say about questions, just remember when you see Chris,
somebody has to read this out loud, and it's me, and I don't read well.
Try to read it out loud to yourself, and at least in your head.
Come on.
and just try to use English.
That's not real
you know, like
words.
it's really hard for, as you ask those questions, just try to clean up your stuff before you hit send. Go ahead, Bill.
So I do a good bit of delivery to broadcast, and this is a rapidly evolving dark well to trip into and fall down. In the past, every station, every broadcaster had a different set of standards that you had to meet to go through QC at the station. That is kind of falling apart. I have found in my most recent broadcast deliveries that most stations these days will take a download from my Vimeo profile. If I put it up at a high level, they can choose the resolution that most meets their station and things. But there are exceptions, and I have two what are called O&Os, owned and operated network stations, that still require me to do a custom encode to their specific specifications using MXF, and that's because their delivery systems require that internally in the network. So it's always going to be difficult.
Next question. I'm just gonna keep moving. We're a little behind.
Jeffrey Reyes says, Alex, what mic do you use when you go out with your Blackmagic 6K? I think
it just depends. It depends. So I don't have any, I use, it depends on what you're shooting. I mean, so you may want a lav, you may want a shotgun. I think shotgun's probably the most, I have an NT2 that I've had forever that I use a lot, the Rode NT2, which is not the most incredible shotgun mic, but serviceable for many of the things that I do. I also experiment with the Ambio, which I haven't really done any production with, but I'm playing with it. So, and then if you're interviewing someone, you may still end up using, I still use the shotgun if they're sitting, but if they're walking around, then I might use the lav. So it really, mics are definitely a very much of a, what are you going to do kind of thing, not what works with my camera, but really what am I trying to achieve? And does it need to be low profile? Does it need to be able to move with the person? Do I have other operators to help me? Do I, those are all, what kind of environment am I in? So these are all things that you think about with the mic. And again, I think the mic is probably more important than the camera, which is why I might use one camera and have 6 mics, in the thing to decide what we're doing. Mickey, and then Chris, and then Bill. And then,
Yeah, definitely. Like it totally depends on what you're shooting, what you need to capture sound wise. If you're just gonna go out to shoot B-roll, something simple like one of the Rode mics that have a stereo pickup. I forgot exactly which ones, but if it's for B-roll, I would suggest to go stereo because that would help your post sound mixer down the line to have material that is has a space.
And I will say, by the way, if it matters, I don't capture things into my 6K that I care about as far as audio goes. Like that's going to be my record. Usually I have either at minimum a mix pre 3 and maximum of a Scorpio that I'm going through before I get to the camera. I don't really record directly to camera, and some people do. I just don't. I haven't for a couple decades. Go ahead, Chris, and then Bill.
Yeah, so I use the Rode video mic. That's this one, if you guys can see it. It's got the cat or squirrel on it and whatever. And I use the Mix Pre for anything that's voice, but I use this to pick up anything ambient. It works great. I have one for every camera.
That's great. Bill?
If I'm only going to take one thing out, it'll be a Sennheiser MKH416. And that's because in a variety of different rooms, I can usually make it sound really good. It's got a little more low end, but it's also got that cut through presence and clarity that I want for dialogue.
Absolutely. Next question.
On an iPad on Zoom, it seems that the internal mic and built-in loudspeaker are both open. Is there a good way to do this with an external mic and an external loudspeaker?
Yeah. I mean, you can definitely do it. The main thing is if there's any delay in the audio on the way out or on the way in, you will defeat the echo cancellation. So it's really important so if you have a device, there's a variety of devices that have I/O that you can either convert your USB-C to USB and then hook up a USB pre if you want, or some other USB device. And all of those will work as far as I/O goes. But the issue that you get into is you just got to make sure that there's zero latency between the output and input. And what I will say is it always affects the quality of your audio. So allowing, whether it's iPad or your computer or whatever, when it's removing some audio to get rid of that echo cancellation is pulling things out of your audio and then patting it back in as best it can. Your audio will always sound better if you use an earpiece at least. An open speaker with an open mic is always going to decrease the quality of your audio because it's taking stuff out of it to make it work. It's not like it's got to go somewhere. So you just want to keep that in mind as you have open speakers. Once you start going into production, like a room with speakers, now you really have to get pretty, you're definitely dealing with delay, even in just the length of the room. And so you need to start thinking about auto mixing. We don't usually use gates. We use Dugan auto mix to basically press one mic down or press the speakers down when the mic's up, or vice versa. So we can have it auto mix between the two in a larger room, and that works pretty well. Greg, were you going to say something? I thought I saw your hand there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, or just use a headset.
Yeah, I mean, earpieces are a really good solution for that. Next question.
Stuart again says, anyone know any tips and tricks to get a Blackmagic design paperweight intensity shuttle USB 3 to work in Zoom? Little comedy there, Stuart. Thanks. Trying to get the intensity shuttle USB 3 to work in Zoom.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, when I was using is he on Mac or PC? Because on PC I was using the virtual cam or the whatever that thing was, the plugin for OBS, and so I used OBS as my through for my intensity shuttle, and then used the virtual cam and brought that into Zoom.
Go ahead, Stuart.
Yeah, PC, but the intensity shuttle, I do the streaming with the vMix, and the shuttle is actually not a supported piece of hardware on there. They have actually said it's drivers are not stable
Yeah.
enough. But I found trying to get it into Zoom today that in the settings window for the video side of thing, it would actually open. You could choose the Blackmagic device as an option in like WDM capture, and there would be the pass through would work, but you'd see black on the screen in Zoom, and the moment you close that window, the pass through turned off.
I think it makes a great, not only a door stop, but a wedge. If you get a door that's a little higher, you can wedge it in there, and that'll slow it down. But I think that's the best. That's pretty old piece of device. I don't think it's gonna work. Go ahead, Mickey, real quick, and then we're gonna go on. And we're now gonna go into speed round because we're almost to a point where we have the same number of questions as we have time. So minutes. So we're gonna move pretty quickly. Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah. The intensity shuttle officially shouldn't show up as a webcam, so it's not officially supported that for it to immediately pop up in Zoom. You would need some sort of pass through software like vMix or another one. But as you mentioned, it doesn't seem to work. So I don't know.
Next question.
Matt says, has anyone heard any rumors of Livestream by Vimeo ceasing operation in mid-August? I read this on a Facebook group this morning, but I have not found anything to back up this claim.
Wow, that would be an intense. I haven't heard anything. That would be probably one of the dumbest things I've seen if they did that, because they seem to be making such great inroads. I don't know what they're doing over there, if they're losing money on it, because there's so many inroads they're making in the corporate / clear label type solution. I'd be stunned, but it's possible. Go ahead, Bill.
I can see them dropping the brand and just folding that into Vimeo's regular offering, but I can't. Yeah, I think Alex is exactly right. I think people are flooding to that solution right now.
Yeah, I mean, if it's that they are dropping live streaming the name, as Bill said, that would totally make sense. If they are dropping live streaming services, that would be one of the more stunning poor corporate moves, right up there with ruining Skype by Microsoft. Anyway, Beju.
Yeah, it could be that they're running two parallel systems right now: the original live stream system and the live by Vimeo. So they might be basically switching everything to Vimeo Live and completely discontinuing the live stream stuff, which is a lot more stable.
That makes a lot more sense. All right, next question.
Chris says, anyone know if, I don't know how to pronounce this, Skaarhoj Mini Fly or a similarly small unit works with the ATEM Television Studio HD, that's the 1U switcher, looking for a compact system for a super easy transport?
Skaarhoj absolutely works with every ATEM switcher that we've used. In the early days, it was a little unstable, but they not only that, but they put up all kinds of open source pieces where you can build it yourself and adjust them, and we've used their software and then adjusted it further. And it's a pretty interesting company that has done really well on kind of latching on, and they have a lot of other tools in there that are pretty slick, and they've moved past just supporting Blackmagic, but they're still pretty powerful. All right, next question.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Logitech C925e is not connecting audio.
Hi, Adjua.
Hello. Any ideas? Not connecting audio. Is USB the only connection?
Yeah, I think that the C925 should have audio in it. You should be able to see it as an audio source. We rarely, I think a lot of us won't know because we rarely use our audio from our webcams. Generally we're using something else, whether it's webcams generally don't produce very good audio because they're too far away and they're little mics. So I don't know as much about it. It should show up as an audio source. There's the E25, yeah. But I don't have a solution. Does anyone else? Yeah, go ahead, Colin.
So I'm not sure what audio chipset that particular camera uses, but it's entirely possible that the video will show up without a driver and the audio will require drivers. Did it say Mac or Windows in that question? I'm not entirely sure, but that's where I would look. I've seen cases where the audio device shows up as a slightly different name with a different serial number, that sort of thing, and the video device. I'm guessing it's going to be something like that. But I don't own one of these, so it's hard to say.
All right, next question.
Next question from Kent Kersey. can you connect a mini XLR to a full-size XLR? I think you would use an adapter.
Yeah, you can definitely do that.
Yeah,
I'm
Absolutely.
assuming when you say a mini XLR, a lot of us tend to refer those as TA3s, so and so you can absolutely connect the two. You just need usually a little cable. We don't recommend, there is adapters that do that. We don't recommend the adapter. We recommend the cable. The adapter creates an enormous amount of leverage, on the connection. That can cause a lot of damage to the connection. So you can see Mickey showing that adapting cable right there. So there it is.
Quick related question: is a TA3 the same as a P3?
I don't know.
Okay.
P3 is a color space. I've never heard of it as an audio cable.
It was listed as one of the adapter types that you could get with the pile mics. So I was just curious.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Next question.
Kevin McCardle says, has anyone used Voicemeeter on AWS with NDI audio inputs? Wondering if this workflow can be accomplished and use any of the VB audio apps like VBand.
I think you've stumped us. I don't think any of us have used that. So we'll, go ahead, Grant, real quick.
Yeah. So if you're talking about AWS and running it virtually, the best advice I can give with playing around with it is using workspaces, AWS workspaces, and doing a graphics setup which has a GPU, and then you have the audio all follows through really nicely. That's how I've got it to work.
That's great. There, see, we weren't stumped. Grant saved us. All right, next question.
Steve Bauer says, I had to miss the SMPTE webcast regarding remote production workflows and technologies at CBS. Does anyone have a link to a recording of it? Posted in the chat.
I believe I have the slide deck somewhere, but I don't have a recording of the.
There was a link that was put into Discord.
Yeah, if we can post it in the chat, that'd be great.
I think I tried to follow that link though, and I'm not sure SMPTE has it up for general public access. I think I
don't know. I have a SMPTE membership, so I don't know whether it's available externally or not. I went right through to it.
Need to be a member.
Okay, then there you go. Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, I found the link in Discord and I just clicked on it. They asked for registration, just name and email address, and I was able to watch the.
And you're not a member.
presentation.
You're not a SMPTE member.
I'm not a member.
Okay, great.
Same here. Can we post the slides? I just screen scraped some of the slides. Is that?
Let's be careful of putting too much stuff up that's somebody else's content. I mean, we better just send them the link and let people go to that.
Honor that. Copy that.
Yep. Next question.
Vincent Alvarez says, best free-ish way to post audio of a 4-hour meetings online is 200 megabyte MP3 files too large for the web. I've used SoundCloud in the past.
I've seen everybody use SoundCloud to Dropbox to, all kinds of other stuff. Jason, go ahead.
I mean, if you're doing a meeting, I would immediately say, yeah, that's probably too big unless, nobody complains. But at the end of the day, I would use mono, and that's going to cut your file size in half because most encoders aren't actually efficient.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah,
real quick.
We do so many big video files that if I need to post a long audio file, I just put it over Black and put it on a video sharing service.
Good. Grant and then Jeffrey, but 15 seconds each.
That's all I was going to say. It's hard to go past YouTube for that. I mean, it just works. I know it's not
Jeffrey.
for it, but it works.
Yeah. Unlisted YouTube video, you should be fine.
All right, next question.
Matt Cole says, I had a production yesterday and missed the explanation of AWS. I looked for it on YouTube this morning and it's not there. Alex, please tell me you'll make it available soon.
It was just too much good information. We just felt like it was not something we could share with the public. And no, there was a glitch. Jeffrey's fixing it and it will be up in a couple hours. So sorry, it was just a little record glitch that we're fixing. Anyway, next question.
Ken Jones says, why does Mukana know who I am on my laptop, but it always asks me for login credentials on the iPhone?
It's probably a privacy thing on the iPhone. I don't know for sure, but go ahead and ask that in Discord. I'm sure Chris will let you know why. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I have this. I have the same. I have the same issue with two-factor anything with two-factor authentication.
Mm-hmm.
I have to relog in all the time on my phone, and I just don't use those apps anymore.
There you go. All right. Next question.
Courtney says, has anyone used NVidia RTX AI noise reduction for real-time cleanup of background noise on live streams?
Leland is playing with it, but he's not here, and he won't be here for another week or two. But I know he's been playing with the RTX stuff, and we'll have to, when we get him back, if you see Leland in the panel, I know he's been playing with it a bit, but he's the only one I know that's using it.
Yeah, he did a demo with a leaf blower.
Yeah.
It came out quite successfully, but he'll have some more details, certainly.
Yep, absolutely. Next question.
Eddie Scott says, is there a way to get Mukana sound closer to sync with the video stream? It sounds really good, but it's a couple of seconds off.
So the design of Mukana's sound is that if you're the assumption is if you're watching Zoom, you don't turn the sound on in Mukana. You're kind of using it in a way that the design of the audio is that there were a certain number of people that want to walk around their house, or they want to do they're driving, or they want to whatever, but they might want to, maybe not while they're driving, but when they're doing something else, might want to jump in and chat or ask a question or something like that, but they can still be part of that conversation without lugging around something or taking all the bandwidth that Zoom would do, especially if they were in a country or just had a service that isn't as high bandwidth. I think that Victor benefited from that yesterday or the day before, where his bandwidth didn't work, but cellular is nice and light and he can download it. And so the goal is to make it more available to folks that they can be part of the conversation, but only listen to it. But it's definitely not designed to go together. Right now, it's set up with it's just a live stream. So I'm streaming it to whatever cloud something or other, and then it makes it available. And I think there's 5 to 7 seconds of delay. Part of that's a buffer to make sure that you keep on hearing it. So if I turn it down all the way to 0, it'll start breaking up because your bandwidth will now start glitching. Now go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, are you trying to tell me that you've stretch goaled all these people into Blackmagic 6K cameras and ATEM Minis in order to create a radio show?
Well, no. So there's
and if you did, we are impressed.
I think that there is a behavior of what it's responding to really is more of a behavior that I saw of people talking about listening to it, and they're turning it on and listening to it. And I was like, well, if they're listening to it, and then of course I asked Chris, our programmer, I was like, how hard would it be to put audio into it? And he goes, oh, let me see. And then like 4 hours later, I had audio. So it was, it was like, oh, I don't know. Chris is very fast if you haven't noticed. And so anyway, so we're playing with it, and anyway, it's interesting. And that's why we do it, though, is make it more available to people who want to just listen without using up a bunch of bandwidth or have to be in an app or anything else. So anyway, next question.
Next question is from Guy. How did Chris Fritchie's live show go? I think that's what he's saying.
Do you want me to answer this real quick? Spent 7 hours setting up outside to do this shot, and the lights overheated, 2 of the cameras overheated, the laptop overheated, the power brick I couldn't even pick up. Brought everything back in the studio, set it up in 30 minutes, and we just did it inside.
So it's a good shot.
That's great. Yeah, heat. Texas. All right,
But
next
But
question.
how did the hamburgers taste?
Yeah, exactly.
It still smells like hamburgers.
That's good. All right, next
and
question.
then Laura Seal says, last question here until some audio hijack stuff. Anyone successfully using Elgato Camlink to turn an HDMI camera output into a webcam?
Absolutely. I mean, I know that I know a couple people. I'm not using it, but I know a couple people do. The original Camlink wasn't great, but the new one, the 4K Camlink, I've seen a lot of people use, and with a lot of success. I haven't used it just because I have other things laying around, but it seems to be a really good solution for that. Is anyone here using the Camlink? It's a relatively inexpensive digitizer, and it will take HDMI and turn it into bits. And go ahead, Chris Fritchie.
I bought one and used it twice, then bought the ATEM Mini.
There you go. So
try once.
So yeah. So the go ahead, Jeffrey.
I actually use it. I normally bring my streams in 1080p, but if I need to do a 4K video, I will hook it up to my camera and use it. I haven't had any problems with it.
Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
I don't have it. I thought I had it near me, but I don't. I just bought one of those. You can get them for around $15. The HDMI to USB. They all use the same chipset, and generic Chinese. You can get them on eBay. And I tried it, and it seemed to work very well.
We've definitely seen some in some of the less expensive ones. We've definitely seen some different black levels and compression that aren't as good on some of the less expensive ones. So that's the thing and one of these days I'm going to buy all of them and we'll just do a shootout with a difference key over top of it and look at what the originals look like, and we'll figure that out. Anyway, Chuck.
Well, so we went out and purchased the Magewells, the Elgatos, and a bunch of Chinese cheap ones to try with different cameras, Sony little palm cameras and some others. And I will say the Elgato Camlink has one of the higher end chips, and you do notice a difference on like the Magewells that cost a little bit more for capture cards or something. And it's more about frame rate and resolution syncing. The cheaper ones seem to have a lot more finicky problems. I have a good friend who uses an old Sony A6100 with his Camlink, and it works great.
Hosmuk, and then last answer, Hosmuk, and then we're on to the next thing.
Yeah, Mickey is my good friend, so I don't want to offend him. I did ask this question on Discord. Is there a way to go the other way around, webcam to HDMI out?
If you can find one, I'll buy 5.
No, there's not really any good way that we know of to do that. That's going to be. You can definitely put it into a computer and then have the HD go full screen and then have the HDMI go out of the computer. So
that's what a Raspberry Pi is for. Sure, $5
computer per camera.
No, well, $5 Raspberry Pi. $5 Raspberry Pi. You can do it. I mean, so why you'd want to do it, I don't know, but you could.
Because we have all sorts of webcams lying around, and I'd love to be able to take one, stick it up someplace, and put it into an ATEM Mini. Simplest use case in the world.
That is exactly what Mickey said to me. So I was thinking of hanging a Brio for the cooking class, nice and light, and I can do the PTZ control. So that's the thinking.
I think that the Raspberry Pi that Colin suggests is probably the solution. Go ahead,
so
Chris.
what you're going to want is a Pi 0W. It just because no, that's not necessarily true. But yeah, that is true, because you're not going to really need the Ethernet for any sort of data transfer, just for PTZ control. So you can just run the HDMI out of that. It's like a mini HDMI to regular HDMI interface.
And it's now time to change subjects. So we're running a little heavy. Go ahead, Chris. You were going to say one more thing.
I was going to say, I'm fairly confident that this Thursday, Grant will be showing the new ATEM Mini USB. So it'll just be an ATEM Mini for webcam.
Do we have any? Is there another Thursday session?
No,
is he doing these every week? I wouldn't be surprised. I was like, oh, they're going to start doing these weekly. So the ATEM Mini ISO Pro, and then the
ATEM Mini SDI
Special
will be the next one.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so we're going to change
still going
subject.
to have 3.5 millimeter audio in.
Yeah, exactly. And overcompressed audio for the live stream, or overmodulated audio for the live stream. So anyway, not that was so predictable. Anyway, so we're now changing subjects to our audio discussion, and today we've talked about doing this for a while, and I just decided to go ahead and draw a line in the sand. This is the week we're going to talk about AudioHijack and Loopback. So for those of you, if you have questions about AudioHijack and Loopback, please post them. I actually have to go use AudioHijack and Loopback in a couple minutes. So I'm just going to explain how I'm using it, and then I'm going to hand it off to Chris and everybody else to run with it. So the reason that we're using AudioHijack in the production that I'm doing today is because there is a distinct difference in Zoom from the original audio and the share screen mode of share audio. And I would argue that it is night and day between the two quality. So if you have an SDI in, and I apologize, I don't have more screen captures to do, but if you have an SDI input and you have video going into it and audio going into it, and you just run Zoom and you set it to original audio and you turn all the things off, it's pretty punchy. There's no low end. It's still doing something. It's not passing just original audio. It's doing something else other than that. if you go into your screen share, and inside of screen share, there is a advanced, and inside advanced, it's music or computer sound only. The audio is significantly better. And so as a result, what we're doing is we have to take the audio and we have to pass it. We basically take AudioHijack because we can't use Loopback by itself. We take AudioHijack and we grab onto the same input that we were using to go USB pre in this case. We were grabbing onto it. We take that, we switched our input to Zoom to something else. We then take AudioHijack and we grab onto that USB pre. We then pass it, just pass it straight out as an output. In Loopback, we send that to the screen, to the outputs, to our, it's just make a little S there, and we send it to the outputs, and then we're able to choose those outputs in Zoom, and then the quality is infinitely better. And we're doing something with music today, so it becomes especially for musicians, getting that extra audio quality is important. It would be easier if Zoom just made original audio actually be the same as share computer audio. That would solve a lot of our problems. But the only solution that I have to do that right now appears to be AudioHijack and Loopback. Go ahead, Chris.
Alex, what you said, if you go into screen share, there's a, you're not talking about the checkbox in the lower left-hand corner. You're talking about something in preferences. Can you explain that?
Not in preferences. When you click on the screen share button, you have basic and advanced. And in advanced, you'll see music or computer sound only instead of a portion of the screen. It's in the second window opened.
Whoa, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, that's the magic input for music. Like that's how you get audio in that sounds good and sounds like real music in Zoom. So that's the little back end way to get really good audio into Zoom. And so we're routing the whole show through that using AudioHijack and Loopback. Go ahead, Grant.
So you're saying that the mix pre is not showing up as an option to share. You have to basically use Loopback to make it work.
It just grabs whatever the output is for your computer. So it's not smart enough to know. Zoom is not smart enough to let you select what that input is. It's just like, what's the output for your computer? So because it's not smart enough to do that, you can select that for your audio in Zoom as a standard audio in, but once you do that, you've ruined the audio. I mean, it's good for vocals, not good for anything else. So
and is it staying in sync?
We had to make some adjustments. so it's not perfect sync, but our audio is running through a QL1. So I mean it's going through a mixer, and so we can make fine adjustments to the sync to adjust for the
you don't
loss.
have to delay the video.
We don't have to delay the video. Yeah, we only have to delay the audio a little bit, and it's just a little bit different than what it came in as. But so that's the way we're using it to get around. We're using these tools, and these are the only tools I know of to do this effectively, to get around the limitations that Zoom has around audio quality, and kind of a backdoor, into the system. It's kind of funny that we're all learning all these backdoors on how to make this work. I do think we've talked about this before, but it's kind of amazing that these are two separate apps. It's a goofy thing.
Stupid.
It's stupid. Like I didn't want to say it's stupid, but it's stupid.
Like
these should like it's just like I can't believe, because now I have two apps that I'm juggling to go in and out of, and I would just pay the same price for the two apps, if they just made it one app so that I have one integrated interface. It's just like they call it AudioHijack Plus, or AudioHijack Loop. Pro. And then just put them all, or whatever, Pro, and just put it all into one thing, because when I do it, it's like, this is dumb. But it's the only thing that works that I know of that effectively passes it through. So anyway, that's how we're using AudioHijack. The other way that I'm using AudioHijack that all of you are enjoying right now is, and I realize that you guys are going to hate me, but I don't know if you're going to hate me, but you're going to be disappointed that the audio is going to turn off, because when I run out, I have to take my computer that's actually streaming so we'll fix that in the future, where it's a self-contained computer that's doing that. But my laptop is what's putting out the AudioHijack, the system right now into the Mukana app. So anyway, we'll fix that. We've learned a new thing, that don't use your actual work computer when you for that process. Anyway, but I'm using that because I'm using AudioHijack alone in that sense. And what I'm doing there is I'm grabbing onto Zoom. I'm then passing it to I actually have meters so I can see it. I have the meters going so that I can see it working. Then I pass it to a streaming, and I just have a URL to Shoutcast or whatever. And then it goes back out to output. So that's how I'm using it. And I know I don't have any graphics to show you here in front of it, but I'll let the other guys show some of that. I know. It's been a busy week. So anyway, so I will, I'm going to now disappear and let Chris take over. See you guys. Have a good hour. All right. Take care.
So, yeah. So, question, I think the first question is, are there any like specific questions that people have? How many people are using it? And we're talking about Loopback and Hijack.
I do, but very rarely.
So is there anybody who has a specific question that they're like, I've been trying to mess with this and I can't figure something out? So there's a couple here. Mickey, you can't have questions. Let's start with Stuart and then we'll go to Sky.
Okay, I'm going to ask the obvious stupid question because I think I missed something in the description there. Is this a Mac thing or a PC thing? Okay, because in the Windows version of Zoom, I can select which device to choose audio from. At the moment, I'm pulling NDI. I can choose system or I can choose anything I plug in via USB.
Yeah,
so it's just a Mac Zoom thing?
No, it's not a Zoom thing. It can be
it's
used
a Mac
with
OS
Zoom.
thing.
So basically what we're talking about, it's definitely a tool to support audio on a Macintosh. So you can, it allows you to route, patch, affect, insert plugins, but it's definitely a Mac only tool. So if you're a PC user and not curious, this would be a really boring hour. I'm surprised you'd stick around. Sky, you had a question.
So it's the same as the audio, like the VB virtual cable application.
It may be. I don't know what that is, so I couldn't answer that. Somebody else could. Peter is nodding his head off. Let's go to Sky's question.
Well, I think you kind of answered my question of why do I care about this tool, but I'd be very curious to hear Courtney and Craig's point of view with regards to why is this tool important in apparently the Mac universe from their perspectives.
Courtney, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, Courtney, you got anything to say?
No, I rarely wander into the Mac universe. I'm on a PC right now, and I have 3 MacBook Pros, and there's a Mac Mini right there, but I rarely turn them on, so sorry.
Okay, you just said I rarely wander into the Mac universe and then described 4 spare Macintoshes sitting around you.
Yeah, send them out, bro. Send them out.
Hey, man, I got over 100 laptops, so you know,
Greg,
they're just one of 100. You know, here's 4 out of 100. You know.
Greg, did you have any?
Yeah, I have no experience with either of these, and quite, you know, just me. I don't see a need for it.
Okay, Victor.
So I put this question in the question as well. You could ignore it there. At the most basic level, what is the pixie dust that it's doing when it's just doing a pass through and loop back? I mean, that's all. But that means, I know it's creating a virtual sound card and using Core Audio to do that. Is that really the only function it's performing at that point?
So I'll say
when you don't have an output.
Yeah, I'll say this. I'm gonna turn on my. So here's my loopback screen that that is always running. You don't have to launch loopback in order to make it do anything, but you do actually have to launch Hijack and hit this crazy little start button. You can see mine's been running for 2.5 hours to make it actually start to work. So in loopback, it allows you to make patch. I think of it as a patch bay. It's a patch bay that allows me to connect one thing to another thing that is not by default. And if you think about what your Mac is doing, I turn on iTunes and I hit play and music comes out of my speakers. But what if I want to send that audio someplace else and not necessarily to my speakers? This is the preset that Mickey helped me build, where we took my Mix Pre 6 and we reminded my Mac that it can be a 4-channel USB device. And so I'm patching certain things only into the USB channels 3 and 4 of my Mix Pre. By default, they don't go there. By default, those things just play over my speakers, but I want them to go to channels 3 and 4 of my Mix Pre, specifically so it could be routed someplace different there. So I think of Loopback as just a virtual patch bay. Jason?
So I have a slightly different use case. If I have a, this might not be the right example graphic, but if I have, you know, a Duo 2 where I want to make use of those 16 channels of audio, actually it's on a different computer. The easiest way to do that is to take a virtual device and match it directly such that I'm matching the channels that I want with the combinations that I want. I've also used it for surround sound to actually assign each one of those 16 channels that SMPTE just allows per SDI.
Can you go back to your Loopback screen and walk us through in a little bit more detail what you're doing?
Yes, but you might want to take another question because I don't think that I pulled up the right one. So yeah, give me a few.
So Martin Reutman says, using AudioHijack and the Epoch Cam audio driver, I was able to connect the Logitech headset to GoToMeeting. I was not able to get a good audio level. During the call, my mic level suddenly drops without touching anything. Any help? Thanks. I'm not really familiar with the Epoch thing, and I'm going to guess that that's probably the issue in that chain. Greg?
Well, I'm sorry, I don't know anything about that, but I really have to understand why this is necessary.
Okay.
You know, to
it
me,
may not be.
You know, I'm an old schooler.
No,
listen. Any extra things in the chain are a problem for me. It's not a
totally
benefit.
Agree. I couldn't agree with you more. I think that one of the things, let me turn my camera on here, sorry. Talk about getting confusing. I would totally agree. If you don't need something, don't mess with it. If you don't get to a wall in your workflow where you go, I can't do this, there's too much of this, let me share, let me push something on you. Look at you have to have this thing, you have to have this deal. And people end up spending a whole lot of money on things that they don't need. I couldn't agree with you more, Greg. I have found that I need a couple of these things.
Okay.
And in my workflow for what I want to do and have wanted to do, I needed something additional because I didn't want to buy physical hardware and have audio leave my computer to go do something and then come back or whatever. So if you don't need it, absolutely. I'm not trying to sell anything to you.
No. I know. It's just that this is part of my re-education, guys. You know, I've been doing things pretty much the same way for years as I think, you know, Courtney's been doing, you know, some of the same things for years, and it's always worked, and it still works. So I don't understand why I need this.
You may not. If you don't think, if you don't have a need in your day-to-day workflow, you don't need this.
The only thing I saw that was cool was allowing me to balance the audio outputs of various applications, so that, for instance, I could run something and I could talk over it, and I could lower the the level of the app.
Totally agree.
Okay, something like that.
Bill Davis.
So I think of Hijack as a combination of digital patch bay and router and system for connecting multiple incoming things to multiple outgoing things in a way that you can double a signal. Signal comes in through one thing of 10 or two things of 10. And you want to be able to route those not just to the one thing that would be simple, but to 5 different services. And Hijack forms that central patch bay kind of environment where you can take a variety of things coming in, move them to a variety of things coming out, and affect each one separately. So it's that kind of device, because it really just inserts itself into the core audio stream, which is how Macs see all audio regardless. But Macs are really smart because when it sees multi-channel devices, it opens up multiple lanes. When it sees simple devices like a microphone, it'll open up only one lane. So you might want to take one thing and send it to 6, or you might want to take 6 things and send it to
Okay.
1.
Yeah.
And this is the tool in between that for core audio that does that.
So it's like a mixer with a bunch of aux sends.
It can be,
Yep.
but it doesn't
I
have
found
to
my
be.
example.
You can
whenever you're
literally
ready.
build anything you want out of it. Go ahead, Jason.
All right. So this is a relatively complicated diagram, but essentially this allows me on a Duo 2 to choose my inputs and
For
very
the
quickly,
layman in this room, what's a Duo 2?
Duo 2 is a 4SDI IO card from Blackmagic.
Okay.
So
Sorry.
I have several inputs, and in this case, actually, I just one. I guess I got rid of the other ones, but I can turn this on, have an output, and then very quickly decide, oh, if I want to play out through this output or that output, it's super fast to get it on. I can also control every single one of these levels and meter them. This is a massive problem solver. You could do this with an SDI patch bay, but you'd lose your mind.
Okay. Mickey?
Yeah, just going back to like helping Greg understand exactly what Bill said. It's a summing mixer slash multiple aux mixer. Like and like it's essentially a way for you to route audio within your computer, route it around without having to go through hardware. Like, we can do all of this with 64 channel or 96 channel IO, 96 in and out, and have it go through like a large board and route it wherever we need it to go. But like what Jason has shown us, or I'll spotlight this video, what Jason is showing us now, he's doing it all in the box. So like with my setup right now, with Zoom and WLM, like I don't need to get the audio of Zoom out into the analog domain and put it back into another interface just for Pro Tools to see it.
Or even into a physical domain. Forget analog. Even if you took a digital signal out of the computer and digitally patched it into a digital mixer and digitally out of that back into the computer, you're keeping it all in the box and not taking it out of the computer box.
So right now I'm going through like the output of Zoom goes into Loopback. Loopback is going into Pro Tools, and that's how I'm getting WLM to show our levels.
Okay.
Just think of it
And
as
in
an
the old
aux
system,
send, right?
in the old system, these might be hardware things coming in. Remember, you're in computers, so it could be virtually things. So you could be playing a YouTube video here and some other kind of source here, all coming into your computer via the internet or something. You need to take those and be able to route them to either
Right.
physical devices
Right.
or other virtual devices.
Okay, let's go to the next question. John Gerard says, cool. For second hour, a few of you have talked about the Rode Wireless Mic Go. I want to use it for my Insta. This does not have, I'm sorry, John. This doesn't have anything to do with Loopback. I want to use it for my Insta360 1R. I know you can use an external mic with it. Is there a built-in preamp? What is the dB amount? And can you manually adjust level of the preamp? I have no idea what any of that means.
I can
Scott.
answer this, but
Oh, Jason, let's have Jason answer. Go, Jason. Knock it out.
Okay. The Insta360 1R is a pretty good 360 camera. That said, never, ever, ever use audio from a 360. It's just going to be terrible. You need to isolate that. I would say that the what's it called? The Ricoh Theta 5 is the only one that I would ever put inputs in. And as far as the dB amount, I guess he means line level or mic level, and I believe it'll accept both. But again, don't go there. It's not really very good audio.
Okay, next question. TJ Asher says, does sound processing using AudioHijack use more GPU or more CPU cycles? I don't know. Anybody know? I would imagine it's CPU because it's not a
CPU
graphic.
is my guess, but I mean, I can fire up a bunch and tell you in a sec.
And also,
Okay.
Chris, that's going to vary greatly on what, for example, VST plugin you're using. There are some plugins that are a lot more intensive for CPUs than others. So,
But does anything in the sound world ever go through a GPU? A
Yeah.
graphics?
Videolan, VLC will use
Okay.
GPU for processing.
I'm just a simpleton. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I think
Mickey says,
next.
Yeah, if you're doing something like your real-time spectral analysis, obviously it'll probably hit the GPU.
okay, it seems to me that everything can be done in loopback, can be done in AudioHijack. Is this correct? I would say no, Mickey, because one of the key things that I have used loopback for is I want to make, so again, if loopback is an virtual patch bay, sometimes you just need 2 more inputs on your patch bay. So like, for example, I might need to make a thing called input to Zoom, and that's a patch bay. Now I have a place that I can plug something into Zoom. Now I can go create an audio chain in AudioHijack. I can then make one last chiclet at the end of the AudioHijack chain, and I select the output device called input to Zoom. Then I go into Zoom and I select the, excuse me, I have to cough, COVIDs. Then in Zoom, I select the thing called input to Zoom, and now my audio chain from Hijack goes into Zoom. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So Hijack doesn't make virtual sound cards.
I don't.
Yeah,
I
it's a
think
matter
that
of
might be the
routing to
technical way
nil.
of describing what I
Gotcha.
just said. Yes.
Right. Go ahead, Bill.
No, it was me actually. Also, a differentiator in AudioHijack is that it has the ability to add plugins, some that are built into the application, and it'll also scan all of your plugins.
That's all
that you're on.
true. That's all true, but that's not Mickey's question. Mickey's question is, can I do everything that Loopback does in Hijack?
No,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Loopback creates.
Let's read the
No,
question,
you
please.
cannot. You cannot.
Yeah. Okay.
Virtual sound cards are addressable by any other thing in the system. That's the other cool part about it. You can go into Mac OS under sound properties, and now you can look at those virtual sound cards.
Mr. Kennedy
And you can
from
also
DC,
create
please.
virtual sound cards in Audio MIDI application, even without Loopback. You can create your
That
own
is
virtual
true.
sound cards. Aggregate, they're called aggregate sound cards.
Yep. George.
Jason, so how are you using your Decklink Duo? Are you using all 4 of your inputs in Loopback, or are you just choosing one at a time?
So, I mean, it just depends. It's very, very heavily on my studio. I mean, which is both, my livelihood, but also my playground. At the end of the day, it really just depends. So, in this case, this is a broadcast machine. This is a Retina Mac Mini with an eGPU on it. And this is how I broadcast a radio show. And what it is just live metering. And the other one was, this is a separate computer. Not that one. Let's see. Hang on. Too many mice. Nope. We're getting there. We're getting there. I have entirely too many screens. I think I'm maybe one of the few that can rival Alex. Yeah, there it is. So if I have a play out for the Duo 2, it's really handy to not have to worry about which output it's going through, because that annoys me. So how do I fix that? Easy. Here are all my inputs. Here's my route through, and I can send it anywhere I want. Probably doesn't answer your question, but it's close as I can
No,
get.
it's fine. So you essentially you have all of your inputs on that same chain from the Duo.
Yeah, I mean, again, I actually have 2 Duo 2s, one in each system. But like at the end of the day, I'm really still just experimenting with it. And what I found is I can do anything I want to and anything I need to with 2 Duo 2s and AudioHijack.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry,
So then
Loopback.
the next question comes from Kyle, and I think we're touching on this, and we're starting to separate the 2 apps, which I think everybody agrees should be one app. But if you're going to buy them together, you'll save $30. Is Hijack necessary for Loopback? Can I use can I just use Loopback? Yes, you can.
Yes.
But as Victor just said, you can also use what's it called, Victor? Audio MIDI toolbox set
Yeah,
device.
it's Audio MIDI app, and it
Yeah.
is in your utilities folder under applications, utilities, Audio MIDI, and you go there in the bottom left. It will let you create what's called an aggregate card. Now, this is
Right.
different than a virtual MIDI. It's your let's say you have two interfaces, a mix pre and a Focusrite. It'll let you combine the inputs and outputs of those two units into a virtual unit. So it's
Right.
not the same thing.
I don't know that there's as much patching. Maybe there is.
There is not.
Okay,
Absolutely,
so Loopback is
100% not.
Yeah, at one point I wanted to just say that Loopback is just a fancier version of exactly the same thing. It's not. It does do more. Jason?
So let me try to explain it easily. The MIDI thing that Victor is describing is extremely old. I mean, it is like, you know, it is back to, like, I would say the G5 days. Yeah, and
Yes.
like, and what's more, it's yeah. It is so old that, like, if you haven't found it by now, you probably don't need it. But it's really for, like, two Focusrites that are, you know, 2-channel. You can turn them into a 4-channel sound card. That's really what it does best.
Here it is on my display. This is what Audio MIDI thing, again, what is it called? It's called Audio MIDI Setup. So this is what it looks like. And I think I started playing with it here. But then I realized that I could do a little bit more in Loopback. So that's
In that application, Chris, just an FYI, other people, it's also very handy to add additional functionalities to something like a Mix Pre 6, because when you first configure a Mix Pre 6, it comes out at a basic level, but you can go in here and use those other inputs and outputs that you talked about.
Yeah, Mickey, and I want to also say that I could not have set up my Mix Pre without Mickey's help. But anyway, Mickey.
Yeah, I just wanted to add regarding the whole aggregate audio device that Victor was mentioning earlier. I don't know how the rest of the panel feels, but I've never had a good experience with it, good and reliable experience with it.
I would kind of agree.
Yeah, I've crashed many a machine doing it, whereas with AudioHijack and Loopback, I actually did a video once, a demo, without any reboots, just added a stupid number of virtual inputs, and I wasn't even able to crash it. Doing my best, I couldn't get it to crash.
Yeah, I've only had semi-reliable experience with it when the interfaces that are used in that aggregate are clocked from the same word clock source. But as soon as one of them got unplugged, crash.
100%.
Oh yeah, A. Mitchells says, at the beginning of the day, Ed Willock said, yeah, I'm coming in mostly for the second hour. Did you have a comment that you wanted to have? That was one of the questions coming in.
Yeah, so actually I had talked to Alex offline. As I said, I was a longtime listener, first time caller today. You guys talked about the ATEM Mini Pro with the audio ins last week and the balanced and unbalanced and stuff. And I thought there were a few things that great conversation we had, but a few things that could have used a little bit of clarity. Unfortunately, Blackmagic, the only spec they give you for that 1/8 inch input is a max of +6 dBV. So for the consumer audio person or consumer video person who's buying the amps, that doesn't mean anything to them. So I think somebody had said last week, that it was, they brought their mixer down to -13 dB, and that's pretty close. The difference between, Pro +4 dBu and -10 dBV is roughly 12 dB. It's 11.78 when you actually measure it out. So really what you want to be putting into those ATEM Mini Pros, and again, sorry to hijack, quote unquote, the conversation here. You really want to be putting a consumer audio output level. So guys who have an X32 hooked up to their ATEM Mini Pro, use aux 5 and 6 that have the RCA out to a mini plug, and you don't have to do any other conversion. If you're coming out XLR from a pro level, pro audio console, I picked up the Art Cleanbox Pro. That'll do that conversion. So I run XLR to the Cleanbox, come out with a mini jack as short as possible and as close to the ATEM Mini as possible. It does have a gain pot, a trim pot on it, and it will add gain because it's an active box. So you're still going to want to calibrate. You're going to want to send your tone from your main console at a reference level, at your 0 reference level, then look at the ATEM Mini in the software, and you're going to want to turn that pot until you're hitting, whatever you decide you want your reference level to be. I use -18. Some people use -20. I know a lot of other video people like to go -12. Whatever it is you want it to be, but then you have your reference, and you'll know what it is going in. And that was basically the gist of it. It does want consumer level audio, which is that -10 dBV. Use a box to get there. I use the Cleanbox Pro, like I said, which seems to be working fine. But be aware that you can overload the input on the ATEM Mini Pro with that because it can add gain. So you still have to do that calibration between those things.
So on the Mix Pre, we actually talked about turning it up to 13 to get that to be even. And so as long as we're doing that, you agree that that should be a good level to be sending to the ATMs?
What does the Mix Pre spit out? I don't have a Mix Pre.
It's supposed to spit out consumer line. So
and you're still having to jack it up?
You're correct in mentioning, like I was the one who mentioned -10 dBV versus +4 dBu. That's
right.
That's correct. Yeah. So yeah, the math that you mentioned is accurate. But yeah, the Mix Pre spits out consumer line. And what Victor essentially did was bring it up to professional line.
Gotcha.
So I don't know why it works out that way.
Right. Yeah, it shouldn't. If he brought it up 12 dB, you'd be then getting +4 dBu, which you can measure if you have if you're coming out XLR on that Mix Pre. If you take a multimeter, you're not coming out XLR. You're coming out Mini.
It's 3.5 millimeter.
Right. Okay, that's fine. So even still, you can if you measure with a multimeter across the tip and the ring, you should get if it's spitting out +4 dBu, you should get a reading of 1.228 volts.
It's a stereo out. The tip and the ring would be the left and the right. So it'd be
it's the line level, right?
Shield, yeah.
No. Right. You measure across. If you did it on XLR, you're going to measure across pins 2 and 3.
Right.
And if you're going to measure across the tip and the ring, not the shield.
Well, the tip and the ring would be the hot left and the hot right because it's a stereo output.
I know. That's if you want to measure the RMS voltage coming out of that, that's what you're going to want to measure, the tip and the ring, not the tip and the ground.
Okay.
Yep.
Greg, you had a comment? You had your hand up?
Yeah, no, it was that whole discussion was about noise being introduced because of an unbalanced line. Okay, the anything, the lower mix pre series only have the unbalanced out. It's not until the Mix Pre 10 that you get the XLRs, of course. So that was really Victor found a solution by cranking the gain up to pro level, and it was a shocking. It was a shocking solution, but apparently there's no distortion, and he's got rid of the noise.
Yeah, there was a gentleman on Facebook that apparently did that voltage measurement coming out of the Mix Pre 6, and that's how he came up with that number. I certainly am not smart enough to have done that.
And the only other way that I think you could get rid of the noise is with an isolation transformer, and there's tons of those out there.
Right. Well, the Cleanbox Pro has a transformer, so if but obviously if you're coming out of the Mix Pre and it already has that unbalanced output, keep your unbalanced line as short as possible into your Mini Pro. Something I do when I have to use unbalanced audio for something, sometimes I'll grab some tinfoil and I will actually wrap it around the cable as like a little Faraday cage.
The poor man's Faraday cage.
Yeah, no, exactly. So
I usually reserve the tinfoil for my hats. The next question, Courtney Gooden says, "Hello, Courtney. Interesting question, and I have a follow up to your question. Are there any equivalents to AudioHijack and Loopback on the Windows PC side of the world? I know nothing about that. So does anybody have any comments? Stuart.
The one I'm using on vMix and what have you is VB Audio virtual input or virtual cable. So it's from the same people who do Voicemeeter that we were talking about the other day.
And one other question
is a free option.
Is Hijack and Loopback? I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's nowhere near as deeply featured or node based the way that the screens Chris and Jason have been sharing. It's just a simple input and output.
And one further question is Hijack and Loopback, are they third-party apps or is it part of the Apple software?
Actually, you have to purchase them off of their website. They don't go through. Yes, it is a third-party app.
Company is called Rogue Amoeba.
Rogue Amoeba, okay.
One of the great names of companies of all time.
My question to you, Courtney, based on your question is, what part of the functionality that you're hearing about Hijack and Loopback interests you as a Windows user?
Well, it's just I really haven't had much need because there is, the internal mixer in Windows you can pull up and you can see levels for the zoom, for your MixPre 3, for your system sounds. You have level controls on all of those things. You don't have the routing. The routing is pretty much automatic, and when you plug a device into Windows, it goes into a list of available audio sources, and so you can then, in whatever app you're using, you can then choose between those different audio sources and pick your input. You don't have to actually route your input via a third party. Right. Each individual application can then choose its inputs and outputs, where it wants to get sound from and where it wants to send sound to. So it's kind of built into most apps in Windows. I was just curious, and I haven't, since I haven't used Hijack or Loopback, I wasn't familiar with exactly what the application is or why it would be necessary, but I can see the application on the Mac since it's using the Core Audio interface in OS 10.
I will say that I find the system that I've built here during COVID for the last 4 months, I would not push this level of mind craziness on the editors at our office. I manage 4 or 5 edit suites at the office, and I wouldn't ask anybody else to try and understand what I've done to this system here. I think it's a bit confusing. I think that I would call it fiddly. It's like, oh no, you have to do this and stand on this foot and then jiggle this handle. But I wouldn't try. I wouldn't push this on anybody else. I don't mind it. It's my problem that I built, so I'm okay with it. But yeah, I wouldn't push this on anybody else. Stuart, you had a comment?
Yeah, with what Courtney was just said and how the routing appeals, it appeals to me. One question actually for Jason, because he's mentioned OCD and what have you before. Does the visual element of the node-based layout make it easier? Because I'm one of those visual people as well. I can't take directions, but show me a map and I can always find where I'm going. So it's like, does having the nodes on screen make it easier or make it faster?
My answer, I mean, I'm in no way OCD. I'm highly ADHD. But yeah, at the end of the day, I love watching a signal path visually. The more visual it is, the less crazy I will become. I've had to write code where, I'm simply pointing, variables at things, and I will always get my wires crossed. If I can see it visually, it immediately sticks in my brain. So yes, the answer is that's one of the reasons that this is so effective. Also, the on-off switches as a per source, per line connection. That is so fast.
I was trying to play some audio, excuse me, through my system to Sky last night. We were on Discord chatting, and Sky, I finally figured out what it was. And for the record, I want to let me see if this makes sense. Yeah.
I was going to ask. I'm so glad.
So what happened was, and again, this is the loopback patch that Mickey helped me build that allows me to select certain applications and route them to channels 3-4 of my mix pre. I then use my little Korg thing. I think I've shown this before. Back to my camera is this button. Oops. I use the little Korg thing. And so channels 3 and 4 on the Korg this is how I adjust the volume of what I feed back to a video conference. So if I'm on Zoom and I'm doing an edit with you, I patch Final Cut into these two guys. And while I'm playing something back, I could actually fade this back a little if I want to hear a producer's comments over, over Zoom. It'll duck it to them too. But this way, this is what I feed out. Whereas this is just my map coming back in stereo, because in addition to chatting here on office hours, I might listen to music. But the patch that Mickey helped me build allows me to patch these things over here into just channels 3 and 4 of the
you just gave me a real world reason that I'm now interested.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm like Jason.
No, me too. Me too. Me too.
So now there's another thing that I want to show, and this is back in Hijack now. But one of the things that I think a lot of people miss about Hijack is the fact that you can build multiple chains. And what I've done here is I've built, whoops, I'm pointing on the wrong screen. I've built this chain here, which is, and I will preface this by saying, this is how I did office hours up until I bought the Mix Pre 6. And what I was doing is I took my mic input, and it wasn't the Mix Pre 6 then, and I went through a little bit of noise reduction, just, ambient noise in the room, mostly the AC. And then I went through this compressor, and then I put a meter bar. This was just a cute little thing. I was able to put a meter up in my menu bar, which was kind of cool because I could glance up and see that my mic was open. And then what I would do is I'd send one output to Zoom. So like if I were to cut, again, I'm pointing at the wrong screen. So what I would do is I would select my, and I think I've now deleted it or turned it off, but I had I built a device. You know what? Let's do this. If you bear with me here, I have to turn it on. Input to Zoom. There we go.
Right there. We saw a Zoom audio device.
Okay, so then over here, I go, no, it's not the Zoom audio device. It was this one called Input to Zoom. So this was a patch bay that I created. I want to patch something into Zoom. So I would do that, and then I would turn this on, and it would, and if I choose that input in Zoom, this audio chain, which is now bouncing in orange, is actually going there. But because all of this stuff introduces a little bit of latency, and for me to listen to that, I would be talking more stupid than normal because of the latency in my ear. I built a second audio chain, which was the same mic pre going directly into a separate audio device that I would plug my headset into. So I'm listening to this, which is a very direct path, but you guys were hearing this audio path. And that's one of the things that you can do in Hijack is you can make multiple instances of things and they're all running concurrently as long as you, and again, big gotcha, down here in the corner here, I don't know if you could, yeah, you could see it, is this silly little go button. So it's doing nothing now. Every morning I'd have to turn this on and turn it on so it would start doing its thing. Jason.
Yeah, to be a little bit more succinctly, think of it this way. You can now immediately route to null as many times as you want in any way that, So, you know, instead of doing this, think about doing this with hardware where you would need an aux out through any pathway that you would have to deal with. You know, any combination would require its own aux send. So,
Yes.
you know, you'd have to plan out your chain such that, oh, well, that's the only stereo that I have, but that one is the combination of that, and I don't want it with this. Whereas here you could just duplicate it ad nauseum, turn on what you want, turn off what you don't. And I mean, to say nothing of you were mentioned quickly about audio ducking. Audio ducking here allows you to create
I
an
didn't
automatic
mention that. You
hierarchy.
wiggled that into the
An
conversation.
automatic hierarchy. You did say audio ducking. And the automatic hierarchy of ducking under things is just magic. I love that.
George?
Hey, Chris, I see you mentioned this a couple of times about having to turn things on. Just remember, you could schedule all your audio hijack to come, like I schedule all my audio hijack to come on at 7 o'clock in the morning. So it automatically turns everything on.
You're
right
way
before,
smarter than me, George.
No, I'm not. Before office hours start, so you could
I
just use the
don't trust
schedule. You could use the schedulers to just turn everything on and off and
I
start
did not
records
know
automatically.
that you could do that. Although now that I look, I do see a button called schedule. So, all right. See, you read better than I do. Victor.
And Chris, I was going to say kind of the same thing. You can use Keyboard Maestro to make all this happen. When I
Kick a man when he's down. I already admitted I couldn't figure it out. So go ahead. Tell me another way to solve my problem.
Keyboard Maestro, every morning when I launch Zoom, it goes off and it picks up the right audio hijack flow, and everything is automatic. Keyboard Maestro is a magical thing.
Okay, let's go. We have some more questions. Hold on, I got to find that window. Yeah, I'm gonna say that's been answered. Oh no, Victor's question. Hey Victor, can you explain exactly what pass-through is doing in Loopback? Does anybody know?
It should be doing nothing. Isn't that what pass-through is?
No, it's actually a device. If you look at it, it's this thing down here.
It's a way to combine things. That's what matters.
But what is it combining?
You can actually label pass-throughs. So you can have multiple pass-throughs, and the idea is it is both an endpoint and a beginning.
But Jason, it seems to be this pixie dust. It's like, what happens in that black box? That's what I haven't been able to figure out. I know how to use it, but I don't know what happened.
Victor, download it and play with it. The worst you're going to get is feedback, and it's, you know, so what?
It's a cosmic thing, Victor.
Right, it's the audio equivalent of a snake eating its own tail.
Okay, everybody calm down, calm down. Mickey has his hand up. I'd like to hear what Mickey has to say.
I'm not entirely sure because I haven't used pass-through that much, but from what I understand is like each device that you create within AudioHijack appears to a program like, okay, Victor's familiar with Logic. Each device that we make in Loopback appears to Logic as an input, but a pass-through that is added on would appear to Logic as an output.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I understand, but someone correct me if I'm wrong.
Much better way than my nebulous explanation. So yes, definitely.
That explains a lot. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Stan Chan says, I assume that a Windows alternative to Loopback and Hijack for live streaming is a full DAW. That might be a little overkill. And then Prema, we have a few more questions. Prema says, I want to know how to set up Audio Hijack and Loopback in order to use WLM.
Oh no, again?
You just check out Mickey's. Now, I will show you this, and I don't know if John Preto is still online, but what he actually did, and I can almost show you. No, let me show you here. If I go to Hijack, turn my camera off. So what John Preto did is he took, and I'm just going to make another, whoops, if I move things, you notice if you move things too close, they start to connect. So I'm going to push this up a little bit. All right, so essentially what you do is you take an input device, all right, and you drag it out here. So the input device would be the thing that makes noise, okay? And it might be it would be like the output of an app, say Zoom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Loopback, and I'm going to make a new virtual device, and I'm going to call it, I have to edit it up here. I have to hit this edit button, output from Zoom, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a source, and I'm going to add the app called Zoom, okay? So Zoom goes to a thing called output from Zoom. That's all I have to do there. Back in Hijack, I'm going to now select the, I'm going to move this up a little bit so you can read this window. I have to select this thing called output from Zoom. So this thing is now making noise, okay? It's not going anywhere, but it's accepting the output from my Zoom call. So then what I want to do is I want to add a plugin. So if I scroll down over here, I have all these various plugins, and now I don't have the WLM. So what could I do that is a meter? There are some meters. Here we go, meters. So let's say this VU meter is enough. So if I bring this close enough to this, it now has, it should be getting, the output from Zoom should be going into those meters. So can somebody else talk besides me?
Check, check, 1, 2, check, 1, 2, 1, 2.
So see that? You guys are making noise over there. Now, oddly, I'm not hearing you.
I think in Loopback, you have to turn off mute on your send from Zoom.
I don't hear anybody.
I see the meters moving.
What have I
mix
broken?
minus, I think.
Oh, be careful.
And this is another lesson in Hijack that
I
you
stole
can get yourself in trouble.
the output from Zoom, didn't I?
He hijacked
I
his own
stole the output from
Stole it.
Zoom and I
Yep.
sent it here.
So
So
you
I'm
didn't
going to go
want it.
turn that thing off. That's really funny. So my output to Zoom.
How you hijack.
Okay.
Hey, Chris.
I'm back.
Yeah,
That's why they call it hijack,
over there
guys.
in options there.
Yep.
In from Zoom, there's a drop down. Uncheck the mute when capturing.
Okay. That was funny. All right, so back to Hijack. I'm going to go like this. I could turn this one. Oh, no, I have to go back to Loopback. I can now turn this back on. That must have been fun yelling at me while I was silent, right?
It was awesome.
Okay.
I had the more you know animation ready.
But now if I open up this meter, so now everybody talk.
Yeah. 207 years ago.
Now everybody sing happy birthday to somebody. No, but this meter here is not as fancy as the WLM. I don't own that, but that's how you would set that up. And then I'd put that on a screen, put it out to Zoom. So that is your Mickey video for how to set up.
I want to just comment on the
with the
brilliance
comic
of them.
interlude.
I want to just comment on the brilliance of them having the little lines glow to give you a visual indication of signal path. That by itself is one of the best UI designs I have ever seen.
And not signal path, but signal activity. Okay, so
exactly.
Let's move on. I have a bunch more questions here. I'm going to just blindly send some of these over. And I'm going to call
As you're
that
reading
one.
that, I just want to know. So if it, in like Jason's setup with all those lines, do those lines glow?
No, not in Loopback.
No, not in
that's
Loopback.
Loopback.
Yeah.
They're just cables in Loopback.
Okay, so Martin Reitman says using AudioHijack, I was able to route the USB headset mic to go to meeting using. Did we answer this one? Or is this a with using Epoch Audio?
No,
I was
don't
not
think
able
so.
to get good levels and suddenly level drops. I think I'm gonna just call that asked and answered.
Yeah, that, was
Stephen
in,
Bauer.
that was in office hours, but I don't think we answered it. Reboot your computer because it's going to be something screwy about your system
And jiggle the
settings.
handle.
And
also
revert to
in audio-
Mojave.
In Audio Hijack, there is a gain, cube that you can put in if you need to gain something up a few dB. It will do the job.
Yeah, it's a little funky, but yes.
I
+2,
agree.
+4.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
We kind of touched on pass through. I'm going to skip past that one. How do Hijack and Loopback compare to freeware, Soundflower, and Laudiocast? Victor.
Haven't we established that there is nothing quite like these things? Sorry,
And
Victor. Go ahead.
Soundflower could be a world of hurt in the key text that would stuff that would put in deep into your system.
Completely
I don't even think
agree.
Soundflower- I don't even think it would work in today's Catalina. I just don't think Sunflower would even work.
So there is Ishai, who has checked out but is still listening, apparently just texted me, and he says that the AudioHijack pass-through is all the program that you did not assign an audio specific destination, and all of that will go to pass-through. So if you didn't specifically take an app or an input, it'll just pass it through. All right. Next question. Guy says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how stable would you say AudioHijack can be? I would say it can be 10.
Very, very,
but
very stable.
Yeah. In practicality, I would say it actually is 10. I have had no problems with it. As long as you remember to turn it on, or
it's only been unstable operators.
Yes.
Correct.
Or as George
Every
pointed
problem
out,
I've had with
I could've
Hijack has
scheduled
been me.
Gabriel Ung says, is there a thank you for doing that, Gabriel. Is there a faster way to search for your AU VST plugins in AudioHijack? There isn't. You really just have to, and I'll just show this one more time. All your plugins and stuff are just down here, and you just have to sort through them. Definitely a feature that they could add. Answered. And Ken Jones, Ed, this is to Ed. And when you set an ATEM audio input to line, then what?
Yeah, I answered that in the chat a little bit, but
okay, thank you.
Basically, I was saying my workflow. I split the audio input to 2 monos on the ATEM Mini in the software to set my calibration, so that I can see if there's any discrepancy between my left and right. I fully pan them though, so that I can then check to the master fader to make sure that everything is metering the same all the way through. And then once I've got my calibration, I just go back to a single stereo fader, so I'm not dealing with 2 different faders to deal with it. So that's kind of my workflow for once when I'm calibrating how that works.
That is really clever. I never thought of that and spent a lot of money to fix it a different way.
Yeah, actually, in my system, I had 0.57 dB of discrepancy between my left and right, which I attribute actually to the pot on the CleanBox Pro, because it's an analog pot doing 2 output levels. So that's where I think it happens. So just on my QL1, I made that adjustment so that I'm hitting both at the same level.
So over my head. That's awesome. Katie Lake says, my media workstation, despite being completely rebuilt for audio production, Audacity, and preparing to add video, ATEM Mini Pro, could now really do with a new computer. I'm in such a quandary. I'd love a Mac, but Windows is so much simpler. No patching, loopback. Which way should I go? Oh, good grief. You can't ask that question at the end of the hour.
You are not going to get a good answer or a balanced answer from this or any other panel.
I'll tell you what.
Okay.
I'll tell you what. Right. Here's what we're going to do. Everybody
I like the idea the
mics.
Windows is so much simpler.
Here's what we're going to do. Everybody mute your mic. I'm going to ask 2 questions. Everybody put your hands down. Everybody's mic is muted. If you think Katie should buy a Macintosh, raise your hand. Do nothing else. Please put your hands down. If you think Katie should buy a Windows machine, please raise your hand. Okay, there you go. Katie.
It really depends on how much money.
I don't believe in depends. Actually, somebody asked Mel Brook, boxers or briefs, and he said, depends. I have a Scarlett 18i 23rd gen. It has built-in loopback. Woo. Would you use the software loopback or the Scarlett hardware for better sound quality? I have no clue. Anybody have Jason?
Apples and oranges, the 2 are completely different. In this case, we're talking about flexibility. Hardware is addressing something entirely different. The quality, if you're doing it right, should be unaffected. It's really just about what you're after.
So I think I agree, and I want to wrap this up because we are over, and I apologize. But I want to go back a little bit. No, we're going to wrap this up. Sorry. But what I want to say is, before we go, I think in general, we need to be careful. We need to be, and I have a hard time doing anything publicly that tells people to spend money they don't need to spend. I don't agree with that. I think that by and large, most of us, we will buy $100 thing and we'll get $5 of use out of it because we're not willing to crack the manual and actually learn about the thing that we purchased. And I think that a lot of times we tend to be like, what do I need? What do I want to buy? You know, it has a pretty knob. I have to have this thing, because we're not actually learning how to use the tools that we own. Too often that happens. So I want to greatly encourage people to learn about the tools that they have, to figure out how to use them, and you're going to save a ton of money. And, you know, it might be a little more reading or whatnot, or a little more studying, or maybe another episode of Office Hours to get a question answered. But quite often we spend too much money. I'm going to do one round of things, and then
and when you're done, buy a Mac. That was absolutely beautiful. But yeah.
Greg, then Mickey, then Hasmukh, and then we're going to say goodbye. Go, Greg.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I completely agree with you. However, I would like to express my awe at this panel for their technical knowledge of all this new stuff. You guys leave me in the dust. And, you know, if I make, you know, sometimes I might make little disparaging comments. It's not about that. It's just that you are so far in front of me that it's awesome. So
Mickey,
you all have so much technical knowledge. It's amazing.
It really is. Go, Mickey.
Craig, you know the theory. All this other stuff is just marketing. Thank you for your theory.
Mickey, then Hasmukh, and then we're out.
Yeah, just to add on to what Chris was saying, like over here in Office Hours and also on Discord, when people ask me like, what should I buy? Should I buy this or that? Like I prefer, like, you know, I was speaking to a lot of people here, like one-on-one, like Hasmukh and, you know, a lot of the guys here. And there's no like easy way to answer like what should I buy. Like I need to know the background, what you already own, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, what you may try to do in the future, a year from now, 2 years from now. So like I really dislike having to answer questions that are simply this or that.
That's why I'm a consultant.
And Hasmukh, you had your hand up. Final word.
A consultant tells you what the time is on your watch and gives you an invoice for it. Just in terms of this session, AudioHijack and Loopback, there's a great tutorial from a guy called Don McAllister. He's got Screencast online.
Yep.
For a real beginner user, a rookie. It's a fantastic tutorial, so I would highly recommend that.
All right. Thank you, Hasmukh. Thank you, everybody. Sorry we went long, but somehow I feel like we could actually do another session of this. Does anybody want to agree? Yes or no? I might be alone. Okay. Thanks a lot, Mickey. Hit your music. And I'm not as good as this as Alex, but tomorrow is Wednesday, which means there'll be something special. And then the day after that is Thursday, so there'll be a guest. And the day after that is Friday, so they're going to talk about education. And Saturday will be about education. And Sunday will be relaxed. And then we'll start the whole thing over the next day. Let it wrap up. I'm going to let it sting before I hit cancel.